Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today's video is one for those data nerds in the audience. It's basically me ranking the video series on the channel and how well they do. This is for my own kind of wanting to see how well different series do, and I'll define what the series are. I kind of broke it up into, I think, 23 different rankings, 23 different groupings of the types of videos I do on the channel, and then I took the average of the last 10 of those type and then pulled out the average views to get a sense of what is the most watched content on the channel. This actually worked out nicely timing-wise because I actually put together these numbers a few weeks ago, and then just the other day I saw that Jamie Stegmaier did a little blog article on 3 takeaways for the most watched tabletop game videos. I'll link to this down below, but he's kind of going through other channels and seeing which series work best on those channels. There's some degree of overlap between what he's noticing and my own numbers, but I think that I have, although obviously different video series and who knows what, but I have different kind of breakdowns of my own. But I will link this down below. I just thought it was nice to see this pop up because I literally was in the middle of doing that for myself. But what I've done over here is over on this sheet over here, it might look empty, it's not empty. For dramatic effect and reveal, I've kind of put the text of all these things in white so I can reveal them one at a time. But I basically went through 23 different breakdowns, different groupings of types of videos that I do, and then I sorted them. So I just took hard data and went that way. I'm going to start with the first row over here where I'm going to have to change the text to black over here. The fill color, no, the font color, we're going to change to black. We have previews, not major names. So I'm going to talk through all these kind of things as I go through them, but this is an example of what I mean by a category. Previews are a type of video we do on the channel. We do previews of various games. These are sponsored content. If you see the word preview, it's a sponsored video almost always. A few times I've done previews that are not sponsored, but that's fairly rare. But it's a sponsored video where I basically am showcasing, or usually Meg actually is showcasing the game in question and saying, hey, here's how the game works, here's how it operates, here's a link to go ahead and back it, all of that. And it doesn't surprise me that this is the lowest category, although with the important distinction that I separated for both reviews and previews, I separated out the difference between major names and not major names. And that is the one area, by the way, where there is a degree of personal bias, or not to say bias is strong terminology, but there's human manipulation because I'm kind of just looking at these and deciding myself. Meaning other categories, a review's a reviews, a gameplay's a gameplay, a top 10 list is a top 10 list. Those things are very distinct. There's no real room for subjective opinion. But what I decide is a major name versus not a major name, that is much more subjective. And just to give you one example over there was a preview for Berserk from Monolith. That's a major name. That's a name that has a degree of attraction, appeal. It's something that's already has its own gravitas, and we are doing a preview for it, but it's a more sought after title, versus often previews that we do for campaigns that are funding $50,000 or less that don't necessarily have a name designer, publisher, company, whatever it is behind that name that is giving it a degree of emphasis on its own. So this category, again, the way these break down over here is these columns over here. I think I may have done more than 10. I think I actually did 12 the last 12 videos, but I took the last 12 previews of non-major names, and the average views per video is 1,028 views per video for non-major names. Again, this doesn't surprise me. It's a subcategory of not major names to begin with. And preview content in general, while there certainly is a place and certainly a benefit to it, I do find that it is the type of content that is least sought after in general. People often want more informative, more review type content, or even playthroughs as opposed to previews. Our next category over here is reviews for not major names, coming in with only slightly more. I'm actually a little surprised by this. I would have thought the gap is higher, but apparently it's not. It's not that high. 1,202 average views per video on a review of a non-major name. Again, with that subjective aspect in play, what counts as something major or not. Our next category is gameplays. Now this one I didn't actually break down into major or not major, and perhaps I should have if I'm trying to be as, I guess, practical as possible, but I did break down gameplays into sponsored versus unsponsored gameplays to get a sense of whether those do better or not. And there is some, when we get to the gameplays that are not sponsored, we'll talk more about it, but gameplays that are sponsored coming in an average of 1,882. Now this kind of makes sense because I didn't apply the best scientific breakdown to this. Again, I probably should have broken down gameplays into major names and not major names as well, but I didn't. And that means that it does make sense that this is slightly higher because we are pulling in, right now you see that the non-major names are the two highest categories, the two lowest categories, I guess. That means gameplays are going to have the average of both popular and less popular stuff kind of grouped together. So honestly, in hindsight, kind of didn't break down those categories as well as I should have. Next up, we have 6 small box game reviews. This is a specific series on the channel. I do other roundup reviews, like I'll do like 3 family games or things like that. I'll do different kind of groupings. I didn't include those. This is specifically the 6 small box game reviews, and things like 3 family games or who knows what. Those are just like our 6 expansion reviews. Those are things that kind of will get lost into not having every video covered here. But 6 small box game reviews, this kind of makes sense to me. It doesn't do super well. More often than not, these 6 small box game reviews are games that are less high attention, but still I do find there's always a bit more demand for roundup content, top 10 lists, things like that. And so this slightly pushes past the lower numbers you might see on a review. So very often, like the things that you'd see in 6 small box game reviews, almost all of those on their own would be for a review of not a major name. So by grouping them together, they get slightly higher average views, which again, kind of makes sense. Then we have Month in Review. The Month in Review series is 2,033 average views per video. This is one where I basically just go over the month in review. It's one of those series that I kind of haven't been doing the past 2 months. I do want to bring it back at some point, possibly with some revisions or adjustments to the categories or sections in it. I think some are better than others. Maybe I'll do a poll. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, Month in Review is an aggregate video series where I talk about the favorite videos I've seen from other creators, the favorite videos on my channel. I talk about crowdfunding highlights. I talk about the best games of the month, disappointments of the month, worst games, all these different things. I go into all of that in the Month in Review. And again, 2033, it's okay. Not a hugely in demand segment, but definitely pulling in some numbers. Then we have the vlog. The vlog is this is a little bit open-ended. Anything that covers a vlog kind of went in here. There was a recent series that I did with vlogs that I did, but it's kind of all over the place. Very often it's convention vlogs or convention coverage, things like that. 2,778 is the average views. Again, it is a little bit all over the place. You'll see things like 1,500 and 1,300 for the last ones, but you'll see 6,000 over here. So one thing that's slightly more in demand, I think that was actually Dice Tower East, if I recall correctly. Like Dice Tower East got a lot more attention for whatever reason. So they're a little all over the place as far as which ones pull more eyeballs, but on average, it's pulling in 2,778 per video. We have games added to the collection. This is actually going to be consolidated at some point. I mean, I'm going to be consolidating games leaving the collection and games added into a single video next year. This year, I'm still having them separate, but games added to the collection is a series where I basically go over the games I'm adding to the collection. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's usually a fairly short video, like 5 to 8 minutes, not that long, and I just go over from the various new games I've played this past month, which ones are being added. So if you're looking for things that were the most attention grabbing or of personal interest to me, it's a good quick way of getting that information, which makes sense that it's pulling in those numbers. Then we have, whoops, didn't do the whole row that time. And then we have, nope, I messed up. I have to go ahead and do this manually. Then we have the board game upgrade series. Now I actually stopped doing this a little bit ago. I finally hit a point where I felt that I was trying too hard to find things to put into the series, so I kind of stopped doing it. I'm not saying it won't make an appearance here or there, but it's no longer a regular series on the channel. That's the board game upgrades, where I go over various upgrades and deluxifications and showcase them. The numbers on this are actually slightly higher than I thought they would be. It's 3,246. Perhaps I should bring it back at some point. Again, the biggest challenge I found is that recently, towards the end of the series, I was struggling a bit too hard to try to find things to put into it, which was never the intent. The intent was to showcase cool things, and I still want to do that, but by making it a monthly series, I forced it a little bit. Then we have Where Are They Now? 3,505 video views per average video. Again, this is a good one in general. This is a good series where I'm a big fan of this series because it kind of grounds the cult of the new in more of a look back. So things that I may have liked a while ago or how things went, it kind of takes a look at things a year ago and 5 years ago, really seeing how things have continued to fare over time. I'm a big fan of the series, and I'm glad that it's doing fairly well. Although again, coming in at number 9 over here out of 23 is actually not really well, relatively speaking. Then we have previews for big name games. So again, this is things like Berserk or whatnot. I have to look at the list of games and whatnot, but basically anything that has more attention, more gravitas, more of a base of interest already, that's what these are for. The numbers are higher than I would have thought, but considering they're a preview, but it does show that to a large extent, while content creators do drive views and traffic to an extent, the built-in attraction of something is usually the biggest driver. If you have a small box game that no one's ever heard of with no reason for anyone to have heard of, and you have 30 content creators covering it, that won't do nearly as well as something that has a lot more built-in appeal from a publisher, a designer, or who knows where, and then having 2 or 3 content creators covering it. Make no mistake, I think content creators do help out your campaign to a large extent, but I think the bigger thing is, at the end of the day, something that has built-in attraction is going to do well regardless of the people covering your campaign. Weekend Review, coming in at 5,318. This is one of those surprises where, to me, the Weekend Review almost feels like a fluff filler video. I enjoy doing it. It's something that I consistently put up on the channel, but I always almost feel like, okay, this is like a recap of how things went. The tricky part is sometimes that's actually very useful. Not everyone watches all of my videos. You can't. It's 15 videos a week or whatnot. You can't watch all my videos. And so having a quick recap of various videos that went up is helpful, but also there are news pieces in there. Again, for me, it's one of those weird things because by the time I film the video, those things are news pieces that I've heard of, so that to me feels like less valuable. But some people aren't looking at the sources that I'm getting my news from, and having one consolidated place where they can get a bunch of the quick highlights, possibly with a little bit of personal opinion thrown in, it does well enough. Again, there are weeks where it does, 2,000 views, and there are weeks where it does 10,000 views, or even more. There's some weeks where it's gotten 20,000 views, depending on the various news things going on. It is one where, again, still in the kind of lower half, but just barely, but for something that's kind of just a recap video series, very impressed with those numbers. Then we have gameplays. Gameplays not sponsored. So 5,503 reviews, to 5,503 average views per video. This is actually probably going to go down slowly because I'm adding a new segment, Solo Sunday gameplays, where it's probably going to go down the average, and I'll explain why. Even though, gameplay sponsored, average of 1,800. Gameplay not sponsored, average of 5,500. I think part of that bias is not because it's not sponsored. At the end of the day, a gameplay is one of the things that doesn't matter quite as much whether it's sponsored or not sponsored, but rather generally, I would say that non-sponsored gameplays usually are games that have more buzz, interest, or just that I'm more passionate about, or they're more set games. Things like I might do a gameplay of Zombicide Black Plague that over time will pull in 40,000 views, versus some new thing on crowdfunding might just not get that level of interest unless it happens to be a big name too. So I do think non-sponsored gameplays generally have represented things that I'm more passionate about, and that I think there's higher interest in that thing, which is why I'm willing to do it, despite the amount of work that goes into a gameplay. I'm more willing to do it, even not sponsored. But again, with Solo Sunday videos, that might be changing. Solo Sunday is not a consistent thing I'm doing yet. It is something I'll be adding to the channel. But basically, it's me going over a few games here and there that I just want to play, and I'm excited to film it, and that means some of those will have less views. So I guess if I put in my own category for Solo Sunday, that might change things, but otherwise it would bring down those numbers. Coming in at number 13, we have topical videos. Topical videos are just topics. Honestly, something like this would count as a topical video, and they are all over the place. They'll be ones that do 1,000 views, there'll be ones that do 10,000 views. It's me just tackling a conversation and then having that conversation, and on average, they pull in 6,355 views per video across the last 12 videos. Again, they're kind of all over the place. Some topics resonate. Can you shuffle a deck of 1 cards? That's not like, I haven't done that video, that's a thread on BGG, but basically there's all these kind of all over the place conversations that just represent something I want to talk about, and then public interest in that's all over the place. Coming in at number 14, we have reviews for big name games. So this is the review category. It comes in higher than previews, and it is specifically for big names. So if I pull in any, I don't know, like for example, when I'm filming this right now, I have Everdell Emelin coming up that I'll be doing a review for. That would go in the category of a review for a big name game as opposed to a lesser known game. Again, it makes sense that those numbers would be there, but again, you see some things like 18,000 over here. I want to say that was probably Fate of the Fellowship, the Pandemic game system. I think that one did really well. 16,000, not sure on that one. Like they sometimes can get really high numbers, but in general, they'll pull in pretty decent numbers when it's a big name. Again, subjective opinion as to what counts as a big name. Then we have haul videos. This is higher than I thought it would be. 6,859 is the average. It does depend on the convention. My Gen Con haul will get a whole lot more views than my Origins haul, and my Essen haul is non-existent because I came back with like 6 games from Essen and I didn't decide to do a haul video for that. But haul videos are when I come back from some convention or trip with a whole bunch of games and I'm like, hey, look at these cool games that I came back with. They do pretty decently overall, but they are, again, variable depending on which particular convention I came back from and with what I came back with. To back and not to back, 7,346 views is the average per video. This is once upon a time, this is a series that pulled in consistently 11 to 12K, but I also think things have changed over time. I think crowdfunding has changed over time. People have been burnt out to a certain degree. I think that to a certain extent that has affected me as well. I used to back a lot more, which meant that I was a lot more passionate about the things I was covering, and now I'm a bit more into the informational side of things and a little less emotionally invested quite the same way, and I think that comes through in the content. And so this is one that is still it's still a staple of the channel. It's still one of the better performing videos, but it has shifted downwards over time. It still gets better numbers on super popular weeks, but 7,346, there's still a interest in the new stuff coming out on a regular basis. Games leaving the collection video. 7,776 views per video. I'm kind of surprised this eclipses To Back or Not to Back at this point, but people still want to see what's leaving. That is a regular series staple on the channel. It has been since I first started. It will continue to be. There's always those extra ones that show up, like, end of year purges, which is where I'm at right now. But games leaving the collection, it's a monthly video. It talks about what's leaving, and people are always interested in what's leaving, which I find interesting. Is they're more interested in what's leaving than they're interested in what's staying. So that I always do find a little bit interesting. Next up, coming in at 18, we have upcoming crowdfunding campaigns, slightly outpacing To Back or Not to Back. This is probably because it's a shorter video and it covers a lot more information, but upcoming crowdfunding basically goes over what are the crowdfunding campaigns you can expect to see in the next month based on what we know today. It's always a moving target. Things get pushed, things get moved. I always inevitably miss one that I knew about, but somehow forgot to talk about. But upcoming crowdfunding campaigns, it's a consistent video series, and it will stay consistent. Nothing's going to change over there. 12 by 12 reviews. This is a series that does fairly well. You'll also notice that this series doesn't have enough to average it out properly. Meaning this one actually I don't have as many as I would like to have. It's a specific type of review that I do where I go more in depth on those games. On average, they're pulling in 8,431, so there's definitely a demand for that kind of content, slightly more in-depth look at a game system, covering it from all different angles with a minimum of 12 plays. It's something I want to do more of, but I find that I don't get it done as often as I'd like, and I really have to tackle it with... One of my goals for this year was to do more 12 by 12 reviews. That goal did not happen. Maybe next year. We'll see. But it's a good series. It doesn't happen as often as I'd like. Then we have top 10 lists. Whatever the top 10 list might be, we have 12,591. You'll notice that is a big jump, by the way, which means these next three over here, because this is like the fourth highest right now, and then we have three more after this. I think that's correct. But anyways, top 10 lists generally do very well on the channel. They do well on most channels. If you are a board game channel and you're not doing top 10 lists, you are missing out on content that people do want to see. It is easy, it is quick, it is a lot of information at once, and it's usually the best of the best at the same time. So whether you're doing a top 10 list on top 10, cooperative games, like a broad category like that, or whether you're doing top 10 games that begin with the letter F, whatever you're doing, a top 10 list does have slightly more pull than a general video, and these numbers, again, look at the jumps over here. The rest of the way, these jumps are not crazy, and then you get to the bottom over here, it goes 77, 82, 84, and then 12,591 average views per video when you're talking about a top 10 list, which means the question now is which three things beat that? I remember two of them. I don't remember the third. But there's three things that beat that. Oh, I remember the third. But they're series on my channel specifically. They're not necessarily series you'd see on other people's channels. If you know the videos I put out, think to yourself, pause the video, what series do I do that would have higher views than a top 10 list? And again, one of them probably falls in the category of you would not even necessarily think it would be a category. We'll talk about it. Anyways, number 22 over here, which is, I guess, 21 highest, but the third highest at this point, is Play This, Not That. Play This, Not That is another review format I do on the channel. Average views is 15,000 views on average, which is pretty insane to me. But again, you will see numbers all over the place. I have I believe the 66,000 one, which is certainly screwing those numbers, was like Gloomhaven versus Oathsworn, if I recall correctly. But you still see high ones over here. This might have been Mansion versus Madness versus Cthulhu versus Cthulhu Death May Die. And then you'll see numbers down over here as well, but still pulling in on average pretty decent reviews with some high outliers that skew the numbers even higher. This is partially biased by the fact that I try to pick popular things when I do Play This, Not That. Again, it's another series that I wish I did more of, but sometimes I do it because I think it's just a good conversation. I think of two games and like, those are really two good games to compare. Other times there are specifically games that are more popular, which is why it gets that extra level of attention compared with just a regular review. I need to do more of them. I like doing it. It's one of my favorite series on the channel. It's just not a series I do a ton of. Coming in number 2 over here, the second highest on the channel, top 100. Top 100 is, I guess you can argue it's top 10s, but this is specifically my top 100 series. Pulls in an average of 19,000 views per video. Obviously, the top 10 through 1 generally do much better every single year, versus top, 50 to 100. When those are broken out, they do a little less. But overall, still pulling in 19,000 views on average per video if you are part of the top 100 series. And the number one, possibly unfairly when I ask you to guess, because I don't think it's a category breakdown you'd have necessarily expected. You may have even thought there would be a subcategory, well, it is a subcategory, of topical, and that one is drama. Drama videos do the best by far, which I don't love, but it is what it is. 23,906 views on average per video. And it is, to a certain extent, a subcategory of the topical category. Drama is anything that is... It's not just an opinion piece. It's not just like, hey, how many times do you need to play a game before you review it? That's a topical conversation. Versus drama is things like, hey, Simon's shutting down, or who knows, I mean, Simon's not shutting down, to be clear, but at least not yet. But like Simon, sold Zombicide, or I don't know, I'd have to find the videos I put into these categories, but they're all things that are more dramatic. They spark a bit more of an ire in the audience. They beg you to watch the video because we like to see things negative to a certain extent. These are rarely positive. They're either news or a much more critical conversation around something currently going on in the board game space. Either way, they definitely go into the category of drama. They are things that spark conversations, spark debates, spark a whole lot of comments. That engagement often is another factor as far as pushing up the video views, but I'm not recommending this because I will say this, drama videos definitely take the highest mental health toll on me, where whenever I put out a video that is drama based, I find that I'm a little sucked into my comments that day and have a harder time focusing on other things because other people are being very heavily engaged with their own high opinions on these things. So I'm not recommending it as something unless you like that kind of thing. I certainly don't. But usually they often are newsworthy. And I do like covering things that are newsworthy. I like talking about things that matter in the board game space. And the drama, as much as I don't do it for the sake of the drama, they often are things that matter, just with a much more of a spin on the negative. That's my breakdown of the video series on the channel. I kind of just wanted to go through these and see how do different things do, just my own, I guess, knowledge, because maybe the series that I do want to do more of, like knowing that Two Back Not to Back, knowing that Play This Not That is a series that does very, very well, does give me additional incentive to push myself to work a little harder at getting those videos out when it's a series I also know that I like. Versus something similar, 6 small box game reviews, do I keep that? Do I not? I like the ability to cover 6 small box games at once in a way that highlights them a little more than if they're getting dedicated reviews where they'd get less interest because of that lower average views. Granted, it's per game, but nonetheless, if you're watching this, more people are being exposed to 6 small box games. If you put out your own content, if you have your own channel, kind of breaking down your own types of videos and seeing your averages and seeing what your audience enjoys watching can help you, especially if you're looking for a focus of what types of videos to do more of or less of. I don't know if I've heavily adjusted. Just to, I guess, to give you a very basic idea over here, if I'm looking at ways to cut out extra work that I may not be as excited about, doing less reviews of not super popular names or condensing them into roundup reviews might be a good way to go. Previews, that's sponsored content. That's one of the things that keeps the channel going on a regular basis, having, bills paid from that. So that's easier to justify. But this is a second lowest category. There's no money attached to this. It's purely done as passion, but it's also passion that doesn't have that much reciprocal interest from the audience. So maybe there's ways to better highlight those things that still allow them to get that attention, that focus. But again, roundup reviews might be a solution over there. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoy this kind of behind the scenes data. And as always, I hope you have a good one.